Jack Weber poured his second cup of coffee and settled back into his favorite chair. The morning sun streamed through his kitchen window, casting warm light across the scattered papers on his table. At 35, the linguistics professor had established a comfortable routine at Pinewood College, a small but respected institution nestled among the evergreens of Oregon. He turned on the small television on his counter, expecting the usual morning news. Instead, the screen showed a frantic news anchor, her eyes wide with disbelief. "We interrupt our regular programming with breaking news. Multiple unidentified objects have entered Earth's orbit. The President will address the nation in 15 minutes. Military forces worldwide are on high alert, but no hostile actions have been reported." Jack's coffee mug stopped halfway to his lips. He blinked, waiting for the punchline of what surely must be a joke. None came. His phone buzzed with messages from colleagues, students, and his sister Ellen in California. Everyone was asking the same question: is this real? 3 days later, Jack stood in his living room, eyes fixed on his television like billions of other humans across the planet. The United Nations Security Council chamber appeared on screen, filled beyond capacity. World leaders sat shoulder to shoulder, their usual protocols and formalities forgotten in the face of what was about to happen. The Secretary General stepped to the podium. "Today marks the most significant moment in human history. We welcome Ambassador Zethal of the Varillian Empire." Jack leaned forward as a figure entered the chamber. The Varillian stood nearly 7 feet tall with silver-blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Its proportions were humanoid, but stretched, with long limbs and an elongated face featuring 4 pupilless eyes that shifted color like oil on water. The ambassador moved with fluid grace that made the humans in the room look clumsy and awkward by comparison. "People of Earth," the translator's voice came through as the Varillian spoke in clicks and melodic tones. "We have observed your world for some time. Your radio signals reached our monitoring stations, and we found your development ... interesting." Jack noticed the slight pause, the careful choice of words. As a linguist, he caught what others might miss, the subtle condescension in the translation. "The Varillian Empire spans 27 star systems. We bring technological and medical advancements beyond your current capabilities. We offer an alliance that will benefit your people." The terms of the alliance scrolled across the screen as they were presented. Jack read them with growing concern. Earth would receive technology, medical knowledge, and protection. In exchange, humans would provide resources, allow Varillian bases on Earth and in orbit, and submit to Varillian authority in any dispute. "This isn't an alliance," Jack muttered to himself. "It's a surrender." Over the next week, debate raged across the planet. Some nations wanted to accept immediately, eager for the advanced technology. Others viewed the terms as thinly veiled. Colonization. Jack threw himself into research, downloading every scrap of information released about the Varillians. Their language fascinated him, complex, musical, with grammatical structures unlike any human language. He started compiling patterns, building a rudimentary understanding beyond the official translations. On Friday morning, his department chair, Dr. Winters, knocked on his office door. "Jack, do you have a minute?" "Sure, come in." Dr. Winters wasn't alone. A woman in a crisp government suit followed him in. "This is Miss Pearson from the State Department," Dr. Winters said. Looking uncomfortable, Miss Pearson didn't waste time. "Professor Weber, the government is forming a Human-Varillian Relations Committee. Your name came up in our search for linguistics. Specialists with backgrounds in anthropology," Jack blinked. "My name? I'm just a professor at a small college." "Your paper on linguistic adaptation patterns across isolated human cultures was quite impressive," she replied. "We need people who can think beyond traditional frameworks. The Varillians have requested direct cultural exchanges. We need specialists who can learn their language and help build meaningful communication." 2 weeks later, Jack found himself at Andrews Air Force Base, now renamed First Contact Facility. He stood in line with 30 other specialists, linguists, anthropologists, biologists, physicists, all looking as overwhelmed as he felt. A military officer led them into a large conference room where 3 Varillians waited. Jack tried not to stare at their towering forms. Up close, he could see the fine scales covering their skin and the way their chest expanded in different sections. When they breathed, the tallest Varillian stepped forward. "I am Senior Researcher Ethatener. You have been selected as your species representatives for knowledge exchange." Jack noticed how easily the Varillians spoke English, how quickly they had adapted to human language while humans still struggled with basic Varillian sounds. The specialists were divided into teams. Jack found himself assigned to cultural studies with 4 other humans and 2 Varillians. Their task: document and analyze human cultural practices to find compatibility points with Varillian society. During their first meeting, Jack observed how the Varillians moved. Despite their obvious physical superiority, faster reflexes, stronger limbs, they seemed to pace themselves carefully. Every 40 minutes, they would pause and rest for exactly 5 minutes, consuming a small amount of food. "Your work patterns are unusual," said Ethaner when Jack asked about it. "Varillians work in measured intervals. Humans seem to continue until exhaustion." Jack nodded. "We call it pushing through. Sometimes we work 8, 10 hours straight if needed." Ethaner's color-shifting eyes registered something Jack couldn't interpret. "Inefficient, prone to errors, but necessary sometimes," Jack replied. "Humans adapt to circumstances." Later that week, Jack met Carrie Duncan, a neurobiologist assigned to study Varillian brain patterns. They sat together in the facility's cafeteria, both exhausted from long days of work. "They're amazing," Carrie said, stirring her coffee. "Their neural processing is faster than ours, their memory recall nearly perfect, but there's something odd about their energy management." Jack nodded. "I've noticed they rest frequently, very scheduled." "It's physiological," Carrie explained. "From what I can tell, they evolved on a world with shorter days and different metabolic demands. They're sprinters, not marathon runners." Outside the window, they could see a Varillian ship hovering over the facility, sleek and silver against the blue sky. More ships remained in orbit, a constant reminder of how easily they had reached Earth, how vastly their technology outpaced humanity's. "The treaty negotiations aren't going well," Jack said quietly. "The Varillians won't budge on key points." "They still view us as primitives," Carrie sipped her coffee. "Maybe they're missing something about us. They see our technology and think we're far behind, but technology isn't everything." Jack watched as a Varillian official walked through the cafeteria, tall and elegant, looking at the humans with polite interest, like a scientist observing lab specimens. "They don't understand us," Jack realized. "They see our weaknesses but not our strengths." A month into the cultural exchange program, Jack sat in on a high-level meeting where Ambassador Zithal addressed Earth's representatives. "Your species has potential," the ambassador said. "Under Varillian guidance, humans could advance significantly. But you must understand your place in the galactic community. You are newcomers, underdeveloped. Our protection comes with conditions." Jack listened, noting the unchanged attitude. The Varillians still saw humans as lesser beings, physically weaker, technologically primitive, and diplomatically naive. But as he watched the human negotiators push through another 14-hour session while the Varillians rotated representatives every few hours, Jack began to wonder if humanity's greatest strength might be something the aliens hadn't recognized yet. 6 months passed since the Varillians first arrived on Earth. Jack Weber had settled into his new role at the first contact facility, where days blended together in a mix of research, meetings, and careful observation of their alien visitors. The facility had expanded, now housing over 300 human specialists and 50 Varillians. Glass and steel buildings spread across what used to be military grounds, with Varillian architecture blending uncomfortably with human design. The result looked like a college campus designed by someone who had only seen pictures of Earth buildings. Jack sat in the main research lab, surrounded by screens displaying Varillian text. After months of study, he could now read basic Varillian writing and speak simple phrases. The language still challenged him with its tonal shifts and complex grammar, but he made progress every day. "You work too long without breaks," said Ethanor. Entering the lab with the fluid grace typical of Virilians, Jack smiled. "Good morning to you, too." "It is afternoon," Ethanor corrected. "You have been here since dawn." Jack checked his watch, surprised to see it was already 2:30 p.m. "I got caught up in this dialect variation." "Time flies when you're having fun." Ethanor's four eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Jack had learned indicated confusion. "Time measurement remains constant regardless of activity enjoyment. It's just a saying," Jack explained. "It means I didn't notice the time passing because I was focused." "Your species' relationship with time is puzzling," Ethanor said, settling into a specially designed chair that accommodated his 7-foot frame. "Virilians maintain precise awareness of time. It is essential for optimal functioning." Jack nodded, adding this observation to his mental notes. The Virilians' obsession with scheduled breaks and precise timing had become more apparent over the months. They never worked through meals or stayed late, even during critical projects. Later that day, Jack met Carrie in the facility cafeteria. She looked tired but excited, her curly brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "You need to see this," she said, sliding her tablet across the table. Jack looked at the screen, which showed comparison charts of human and Virilian physical data. "What am I looking at?" "Energy expenditure patterns," Carrie explained, keeping her voice low. "The Virilians have been studying our physiology, but I've been studying theirs too. Look at the stamina measurements." Jack studied the charts. The data showed Virilians outperforming humans in strength tests by at least 300%. Their reaction times were twice as fast as the average human. But in endurance tests, the pattern reversed dramatically. "They can't maintain output," Jack observed. "Exactly," Carrie said. "They're like high-performance sports cars with small gas tanks. Incredible power but limited range. Humans are like diesel trucks, less flashy but can go much further." Jack thought about the strict break schedules, the carefully portioned meals, the way Virilians seem to fade after periods of activity. "Have they noticed this difference?" he asked. "I don't think they see it as important," Carrie replied. "They value speed and strength. Endurance doesn't impress them because their technology compensates for it. Why run a marathon when you have faster transportation? Why work long hours when efficiency makes it unnecessary?" The next morning, Jack joined a mixed human-Virilian team testing new communication devices. The session was scheduled for 3 hours with 2 built-in break periods. After the first 90 minutes, the Virilians stepped away for their rest, while the humans continued working. "Don't you need to rest?" asked Miriatal, a young Virilian technician, when she returned. "I'm fine," Jack said. "I'll take a break for lunch in another hour or so." "You've been continuously active for 102 minutes, Miriatal noted with concern. "That's nothing," said Ben, another human researcher. "Back in college, I once studied for 18 hours straight before finals, just kept refilling my coffee." The Virilians exchanged looks that Jack had learned to recognize as disbelief. That evening, Jack visited the physical training area where both species exercised. The gym had been modified with Virilian equipment alongside human treadmills and weights. He watched as a Virilian easily lifted what must have been 500 pounds, then stopped after just 10 repetitions. On the running track, humans jogged steadily, while Virilians performed incredible sprints before quickly stepping off to recover. None of them ran for more than a few minutes at a time. Jack spotted Ethanor observing from the side and joined him. "Your physical capabilities remain puzzling," Ethanor said without preamble. "Your species is clearly inferior in strength and speed, yet you insist on these prolonged exercise sessions." "We build endurance," Jack explained. "The ability to keep going is just as important as how fast or strong you are." "An interesting cultural value?" Ethanor replied in a tone that suggested he found it primitive rather than useful. Over the next weeks, Jack and Carrie began documenting their observations more systematically. They met after hours, comparing notes on Virilian behavior and physiology. "Look at this," Carrie said one evening, showing Jack historical data about the Varillian homeworld. Their planet has a 20-hour day, and it orbits a red dwarf star with lower light intensity. So they evolved with different circadian rhythms, Jack mused. And different energy management, Carrie added. Their metabolism is built for quick bursts of activity followed by recovery. They never developed our slowed-twitch muscle fibers or our endurance-based cardiovascular system. Jack recalled something from his anthropology background. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. Our ancestors would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, even if it was faster than us. Exactly, Carrie said. We're built to keep going. The Varillians evolved as ambush predators, quick, deadly, but energy conservative. Their research continued in secret, not because they feared Varillian disapproval, but because neither wanted to reveal what might be humanity's hidden advantage. The diplomatic situation had stabilized but remained tense. The Varillians still pushed for terms that would make Earth essentially a protected resource colony. Many nations had signed individual agreements, eager for Varillian technology, while others resisted, suspicious of the aliens' true intentions. 1. Afternoon, a human-Varillian cultural exchange event was organized. Teams from both species participated in games and challenges designed to build relationships. Jack watched as Varillians dominated the strength contests and precision tasks, moving with astonishing grace and power. Then came a simple endurance challenge: hold a moderate weight with arms extended. The Varillians scoffed at the simplicity, easily holding the weights with their superior strength. But after 4 minutes, they began to falter. By 6 minutes, all had dropped out. 3 humans remained at the 10-minute mark, faces red with effort. But still holding. Later, Jack overheard 2 Varillian scientists discussing the event. It makes no logical sense, one said. Their muscle fibers should have failed. Perhaps they damaged themselves to continue, the other suggested. Their pain tolerance is unnaturally high. Jack smiled to himself. The Varillians still didn't understand. Humans pushed through discomfort not because they didn't feel pain, but because they had evolved to endure it. That night, Jack wrote in his personal journal. The Varillians see our shorter lives, our weaker bodies, and think us fragile. They don't realize that humans were built to endure. And in the face of a crisis, endurance might matter more than strength. He didn't know how prophetic those words would prove to be. The sky turned an angry orange as Jack looked out the window of the first contact facility. Weather reports had warned about the massive solar flare heading toward Earth, but no one had predicted its intensity. Scientists from both species had been monitoring the situation for days, but even the Varillians seemed surprised by the scale of the event. All non-essential personnel should return to quarters, announced the facility's AI system. Expect power fluctuations and communication disruptions. Jack was heading toward his room when he ran into Carrie in the hallway. This is bad, she said, her face tight with worry. The solar flare is much stronger than predicted. It's already knocked out 3 satellites and damaged one of the Varillian orbital stations. Before Jack could respond, the lights flickered and died, plunging the hallway into darkness. Emergency lighting activated seconds later, casting everything in a dim red glow. Power grid failure across the eastern seaboard, said a voiceover. The emergency system. Backup generators are online, but at limited capacity. Jack and Carrie made their way to the central command room where humans and Varillians gathered around status screens. Ambassador Zithal stood in the center, issuing directions to subordinates who moved with less than their usual grace. 3 more Varillian ships have reported critical systems damage, a human technician announced. They're requesting emergency assistance. Our medical facility in Sector 4 has lost primary and backup power, another voice called out. Life. Support systems for critical patients are failing. Jack watched as the Varillians tried to manage the crisis. They were brilliant and their technology far superior to human systems, but as hours passed, he noticed something concerning. The Varillians were faltering. Their movements became less fluid, their decision-making slower. They adhered to their rest schedules even as the situation worsened. They can't keep up, Carrie whispered to Jack. Look at them. They're exhausted. Jack nodded. The Virilians had been working for 6 hours straight, with only their scheduled short breaks. For humans, this was challenging but normal during a crisis. For the Virilians, it appeared to be pushing their physiological limits. When news came that the medical facility's manual backup systems needed continuous operation, the Virilian crisis team seemed at a loss. The systems require constant adjustment, explained a Virilian medical officer named Trelver, but our teams cannot maintain the necessary monitoring for more than 2 hours. We need a solution before our staff requires rest. Jack exchanged a look with Carrie. We can help, he said, stepping forward. Humans can work in shifts. We can keep the systems running manually while your teams recover. Ambassador Zithal turned. All 4 eyes toward Jack. These are complex medical systems. You lack the technical knowledge? Then give us basic training, Jack insisted. Teach us what dials to watch, what buttons to push. We can follow instructions, and we can do it for hours. After a brief debate, the Virilians agreed. Jack quickly organized human volunteers into 4 teams that would rotate in 6-hour shifts. Each team received a crash course in operating the manual life support systems from Virilian experts. As Jack's team prepared to begin their shift, Trelver pulled him aside. You must understand the importance of these systems, the Virilian said. There are 26 patients dependent on them. Both Virilian and human lives are at stake. We understand, Jack assured him. We won't let you down. The medical facility was chaos when they arrived. The red emergency lights cast eerie shadows across the advanced medical equipment. Jack's team took their positions at control panels that had been designed for Virilian hands. Remember, the oxygen levels must stay within these parameters, instructed. A Virilian nurse, pointing to markings on a dial. Adjust manually every 15 minutes. For the next 6 hours, Jack and his team monitored systems, turned dials, pressed buttons, and maintained the delicate balance that kept patients alive. When Carrie arrived with the second team, Jack briefed her quickly. It's challenging but manageable, he told her. The hardest part is the constant vigilance. You can't look away for more than a few minutes, Carrie nodded. We've got this. Get some rest and be ready for your next shift. But Jack didn't rest. He joined another team that was manually transporting medical supplies across the facility after. The automated delivery systems failed. For 4 more hours, he carried boxes up and down stairs, his muscles burning with exertion. Across the city, similar scenes played out, with most vehicles disabled by the electromagnetic pulse from the solar flare. Humans formed relay lines to move essential supplies. They worked through the night under the strange aurora created by the solar storm. After a brief 3-hour nap, Jack returned to the medical facility for his team's second shift. He found Ethaner there, looking at the human operators with an expression Jack couldn't quite read. Your people have been maintaining these systems for 20 hours, the Virilian scientist said. Different people in shifts, Jack explained, though he knew that wasn't entirely true. Many humans, including himself, had worked far longer than a single shift. Not all different, Ethaner observed. You were here earlier, then you moved supplies? Now you are back. Jack shrugged. We do what needs to be done. Ethaner seemed troubled. No Virilian could function effectively after such extended activity. Humans are good at pushing through, Jack said simply, taking his position at a control panel. As the crisis continued into its second day, the differences between humans and Virilians became increasingly apparent. Virilian teams rotated completely every few hours, with fresh personnel replacing tired ones. Human teams had the same core members working extended shifts, catching naps when possible but returning to duty out of necessity. On the third day, with power still unstable and communication spotty, Ambassador Zithal called a meeting of the crisis management team. Jack attended, running on coffee and determination after nearly 50 hours of work with only short breaks for sleep. The Virilian ambassador looked around the room, noting the exhausted but functional humans alongside Virilian staff who had been carefully cycled to maintain their effectiveness. I must acknowledge something unexpected, Sithal said. In this crisis, human endurance has proven remarkable. You operate beyond what we considered biologically possible. Jack was too tired to feel triumphant at this admission. It's what we do, he said simply. Humans keep going when we have to. Later that day, as Jack finally returned to his quarters for a real rest, he found Carrie waiting outside his door. The Virilians are talking, she said with a tired smile. Really talking. The ambassador has requested a complete review of the treaty negotiations in light of what he called new understanding of human capabilities. Jack leaned against the wall, feeling the weight of days without proper sleep. They never saw it coming, he said. They thought we were weak because we weren't as strong or as fast. They didn't understand what strength really is, Carrie replied. Sometimes it's not about how hard you can hit, but how long you can stand. As Jack finally collapsed into his bed, he thought about how the crisis had revealed what he and Carrie had suspected all along. Humans weren't physically impressive by Virilian standards, but they possessed something the aliens had never encountered before, the ability to endure, to push through exhaustion, to keep fighting long after logic said they should stop, and now the Virilians were beginning to understand just how valuable and formidable that strength could be. 2 weeks after the solar flare crisis, life at the first contact facility had returned to normal. Power systems were repaired, damaged equipment replaced, and regular operations resumed. But something fundamental had changed in the relationship between humans and Virilians. Jack noticed it during meetings. Virilian officials who once spoke with barely concealed condescension now listened more carefully to human input. The shift was subtle but unmistakable. Jack sat in the main conference room alongside Carrie, waiting for a special presentation to begin. The room filled with high-ranking officials from both species. Ambassador Zithal entered last, followed by a Virilian Jack had never seen before, older, with skin that had faded from silver blue to a paler shade. This is Chief Scientist Neverick from our homeworld, Ambassador Zithal announced. He has studied the data from our recent crisis and wishes to share his findings. The elderly Virilian stepped forward, activating a holographic display in the center of the room. My analysis has revealed something unexpected, Neverick began, his translated voice carrying a tone of scholarly interest. Humans possess biological traits that have no parallel in any species the Virilian Empire has encountered. The hologram showed comparative physiological data between humans and Virilians. As we knew, Virilians exceed humans in strength by an average of 305%. Our reaction time is 217% faster. Our sensory perception is more acute across multiple spectrums, Neverick stated matter-of-factly. The display shifted to new charts that Jack recognized from his and Carrie's secret research. However, human endurance capabilities are extraordinary, Neverick continued. During the crisis, we recorded humans functioning at 82% efficiency after 30 hours without rest. Virilians dropped to 40% efficiency after just 10 hours of continuous activity. Murmurs filled the room as both humans and Virilians absorbed this information. More remarkable is the human recovery rate, Neverick said, pointing to a new chart. After extreme exertion, Virilians require a full rest cycle to return to optimal function. Humans can achieve 75% function after just a short nap, as they call it. Jack glanced at Carrie, who gave him a small smile. Everything they had observed was now being officially acknowledged? But most significant, Neverick said, his voice gaining intensity, is what humans call second wind, the ability to access new energy reserves when logically they should be depleted. The display showed brain scans and hormone levels during extended activity. Humans release compounds that temporarily override fatigue signals. They experience pain and exhaustion but can continue functioning despite these signals. This capacity has no equivalent in Virilian physiology. Ambassador Zithal stepped forward. Chief Scientist Neverick has helped us understand why humans organize their society so differently from ours. What we perceived as inefficiency, long work shifts, continuous operations, night activities, represents adaptation to your biological capabilities. Jack raised his hand and was acknowledged. It's more than just biology, he explained. Humans have cultural values built around endurance, persistence, determination. We celebrate those who keep going when logic says they should stop. Neverick's eyes shifted colors with interest. Yes, we noticed your literature and historical records are filled with such examples. The marathon runner. The surgeons performing operations for 20 hours. The soldiers marching for days. The parents caring for children despite exhaustion. After the presentation, Jack was invited to a smaller meeting with Ambassador Zithal, Neverick, and several high-ranking officials from both species. The room felt different, more equal somehow. We wish to understand this human trait better, Ambassador Zithal said. In our evolutionary history, exerting oneself beyond necessary energy expenditure was counterproductive. Why would your species develop this trait? Jack considered how to explain. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We couldn't outrun our prey, but we could outlast them. We would track animals until they collapsed from exhaustion, even if the chase took days. The Virelians seemed disturbed by this concept. This explains much, Neverick said. Your sleeping patterns, your ability to function in varied environments, your approach to problems all reflect this evolutionary adaptation. But it goes beyond physical endurance, Carrie added. Humans also show remarkable psychological endurance. We can maintain hope and determination in seemingly hopeless situations. Ambassador Zithal's eyes shifted to a deep purple, a color Jack had learned. Indicated serious contemplation. This changes our assessment of your species, the ambassador admitted. We evaluated humans based on measurable physical and technological capabilities. We failed to recognize this unique attribute. The meeting continued for hours as both species shared insights about their different evolutionary paths. The Virelians explained their development on a world with shorter days and more abundant resources, which led to their focus on efficiency and conservation rather than endurance. That evening, Jack found Ethaner in the research lab, studying historical human achievements. These accounts seem impossible, Ethaner said, pointing to stories of Arctic explorers, ultramarathon runners, and sailors surviving at sea for months. How can a human walk for 100 hours with minimal rest? It's not just the physical ability, Jack explained. It's also the mental determination. Humans can decide to keep going even when our bodies tell us to stop. This is what we failed to understand, Ethaner admitted. We saw your physical limitations but missed your capacity to overcome them through sheer will. Over the next few days, a new research initiative was launched. Virelian scientists studied human endurance while human researchers examined Virelian efficiency. Both species began to see how they might complement each other's strengths and weaknesses. Jack sat with Carrie in the facility garden, watching the sunset. The orange light reminded them of the solar flare that had changed everything. The treaty negotiations have completely changed, Carrie said. Did you hear? The Virelians are now talking about a true partnership rather than a protectorate arrangement. Jack nodded. They're starting to understand what we could offer them beyond just resources. Our endurance could be valuable in situations where their efficiency breaks down. It's more than that, Carrie said. I overheard 2 Virelian military officers talking. They were discussing what would happen if they ever faced humans in conflict. And? Jack asked. They were concerned, Carrie replied with a small smile. One of them said, we might win the first day of battle, but humans would still be fighting on day 10 when our forces would be depleted. Jack considered this. So they're starting to see our endurance as not just useful, but potentially threatening. Exactly, Carrie said. And that's changing how they view the alliance. They're beginning to treat us with real respect. Later that week, Ambassador Zithal made a formal announcement. The original treaty terms were being withdrawn. New negotiations would begin based on a relationship of equals, with each species contributing their unique strengths. As Jack listened to the announcement, he thought about how the Virelians had arrived so confident in their superiority. They had seen humans as weaker, slower, less advanced. They hadn't understood that sometimes. True strength isn't about how powerful you are in a moment, but how long you can keep going when things get tough. The human strength the aliens never saw coming wasn't in their muscles or their technology. It was in their stubborn refusal to give up, their ability to endure when logic said they should fail, and their determination to keep pushing forward no matter how difficult the path. And now, that strength had earned humanity a place at the galactic table as equals, not subordinates. 1 year after the solar flare crisis, the relationship between humans and Virilians had transformed completely. The new treaty, signed 3 months ago, established Earth and the Virilian Empire as equal partners in what they called the Galactic Cooperative Alliance. Jack stood on the observation deck of the Horizon, the first joint human-Virilian spaceship. Through the massive viewport, Earth looked peaceful and blue below them. The ship represented everything the new alliance stood for, Virilian technology combined with human innovation and adaptability. "Still hard to believe we're actually here," Carrie said, joining him at the window. Her new uniform displayed both Earth and Virilian insignia side by side. Jack nodded. "From linguistics professor to space diplomat in 18 months? Not exactly the career path I planned." Their conversation was interrupted as Ethaner entered the observation deck. The Virilian scientist now served as the chief liaison officer for joint research projects. "The captain requests your presence on the bridge," Ethaner said. "We've received a transmission from the council." Jack and Carrie followed Ethaner through the ship's corridors. The design reflected both species' needs, efficient and elegant like Virilian architecture, but with the durability and redundancy systems that humans preferred. On the bridge, Captain Diane Rivera nodded as they entered. A human with 30 years of naval experience, she had been selected to command this historic mission alongside Virilian First Officer Talmor. "We've received an urgent message from the Virilian High Council," Captain Rivera said without preamble. "They're requesting our immediate assistance." The main screen activated, showing Ambassador Zithal. Even through the transmission, Jack could see the concern in the ambassador's color-shifting eyes. "Horizon crew, we face a situation that requires the unique capabilities of your joint team," Zithal began. "A Virilian colony in the Taurus system has gone silent. Our last communication indicated they were under observation by Draxian vessels." Jack exchanged a glance with Carrie. They had been briefed about the Draxians, a species known for their territorial expansion and resource acquisition. Until now, they had been a distant concern, operating far from both Earth and Virilian space. "The Draxians employ a specific strategy," Zithal continued. "They establish blockades around target worlds, cutting off communications and supplies. They wait until the colony weakens before moving in. Previous Virilian encounters with this tactic have been ... unsuccessful. Because Virilians can't maintain extended resistance during a blockade," Jack realized aloud. "Precisely," Zithal acknowledged. "Our biology makes us vulnerable to sieges. We believe this combined human-Virilian vessel may offer a new approach." Captain Rivera straightened her uniform. "The Horizon will respond immediately. We can reach the Taurus system in 4 days at maximum speed." After the transmission ended, the bridge erupted in activity as course changes were plotted and systems prepared for the journey. First Officer Talmor approached Jack and Carrie. "This mission will test our alliance in ways we had not anticipated," the Virilian said. "The Draxians have never encountered humans. They do not know what to expect." During the 4-day journey to the Taurus system, the crew prepared for multiple scenarios. The ship's complement included 50 humans and 50 Virilians, each selected for their specialized skills and ability to work with the other species. Jack worked with the communications team, developing strategies to contact the colony despite the blockade. Carrie joined the medical staff, preparing for potential casualties with treatments adapted for both species. Captain Rivera called a final briefing as they approached the Taurus system. "We've developed a plan that plays to both species' strengths," she explained, pointing to tactical displays. "Virilian crew members will handle the precision operations requiring their superior reaction time and strength. Human crew will maintain continuous operations, allowing our Virilian colleagues their necessary rest cycles." First Officer Talmor nodded in agreement. This approach maximizes our combined capabilities. The Draxions expect Virillian patterns, short bursts of activity followed by recovery periods. They will not be prepared for continuous pressure. The horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Taurus system. Long-range sensors immediately detected 7 Draxian vessels in orbit around the colony planet. "They've spotted us," announced the sensor officer. "Draxian ships are moving to intercept. Open a channel," Captain Rivera ordered. "Let's see if they're willing to talk before this gets complicated." The main screen displayed a Draxian commander. Reptilian features set in a permanent scowl, scales gleaming under harsh lights. "Virillian vessel, you have entered restricted space. Retreat immediately or face consequences," the Draxian stated flatly. "This is Captain Diane Rivera of the Alliance vessel Horizon. We are here to check on the Virillian colony and provide humanitarian assistance if needed." The Draxian's eyes narrowed at the human face addressing him. "You are not Virillian. Explain your presence on a Virillian ship." "This is a joint human-Virillian vessel," Rivera explained calmly. "We represent the newly formed Galactic Cooperative." "Alliance." The transmission cut abruptly as the Draxians processed this unexpected development. Minutes later, 3 Draxian ships moved to form a blockade between the horizon and the colony planet. "They're testing us," First Officer Talmor observed. "The Draxians rely on outlasting their opponents. They expect us to either attack immediately or retreat after a brief standoff." Captain Rivera smiled. "Then let's show them something new. We maintain position, full sensor sweeps of the colony, continuous communication attempts, and we wait." For the next 3 days, the horizon maintained its position. The human crew members worked in carefully coordinated shifts, ensuring continuous operations while allowing each person adequate rest. The Virillians focused on specialized tasks requiring their precision and strength, rotating frequently to maintain peak efficiency. The Draxians maintained their blockade, clearly expecting the horizon to either attack or retreat from what appeared to be a stalemate. On the 4th day, Jack's communications team detected a weak signal from the colony. "Captain, we found a frequency the Draxians aren't jamming," Jack reported excitedly. "It's in an unusual bandwidth that might be considered obsolete by their standards." Using this channel, they established contact with the colony's leaders. The Virillian colonists had been resisting the blockade but were approaching their limits. "We cannot maintain essential functions much longer," the colony governor reported. "Our energy reserves are critically low after continuous Draxian harassment." "Hold on," Captain Rivera assured them. "We have a plan." That night, while the Draxian ships maintained their standard patrol pattern, the Horizon launched 6 small shuttles. Each carried a mixed team of humans and Virillians, using the colony's specifications to avoid detection. Jack found himself aboard the lead shuttle with Carrie and Ethanar, heading toward the colony under cover of the planet's magnetic field. "The Draxians expect any rescue attempt to be direct and powerful," Ethanar explained. "They do not anticipate a slow, persistent approach." All 6 shuttles reached the colony safely, bringing supplies, medical assistance, and most importantly, human endurance to complement the colonists' waning strength. Over the next week, human team members worked alongside colonists, maintaining critical systems while Virillians cycled through their needed rest periods. The colony stabilized, and with Horizon's continued presence outside the blockade, the Draxians found themselves in an unexpected scenario. Their siege tactics weren't working. On the 10th day, the Draxian commander requested communication. "Your approach is unusual," the commander admitted, addressing both Captain Rivera and First Officer Talmor. "We have observed your continued operations without degradation. This alliance between your species presents unexpected challenges to our standard protocols. Perhaps it's time to consider diplomatic solutions," Rivera suggested. Within days, the Draxians agreed to withdraw from the system in exchange for trade negotiations with the new alliance. They had recognized that their siege strategy was ineffective against an enemy that combined Virillian technology with human endurance, As the Horizon prepared for its return journey, Jack watched the Draxian ships depart from the colony's surface. Beside him, Ithano looked thoughtful. "When our species first encountered yours," the Virilian said, "we saw only your limitations. We measured strength by our own standards and found humans wanting." A common mistake," Jack replied with a smile. "Judging others by what makes you strong rather than recognizing different kinds of strength." "Indeed," Ithano agreed. "The human strength we never saw coming has changed not just our two species, but potentially the balance of power throughout this sector of the galaxy." As they boarded the shuttle to return to the Horizon, Jack realized that what had started as a simple observation about rest breaks had led to a fundamental shift in interstellar relations. The very trait that had once made the Virilians dismiss humans as weak had proven to be humanity's greatest contribution to their alliance. Sometimes true strength wasn't about power or technology or resources. Sometimes it was simply about the ability to keep going when everyone else had stopped.